My mother's voice didn't shake when she said it. That was the part that stayed with me. Not the words themselves. Words can be thrown like knives in any household where love is conditional, but the calmness. The ease. Like she was commenting on the weather. We were standing in the middle of the rented banquet hall, surrounded by gold balloons, crystal glasses, and fake smiles. Her friends were laughing nearby, dressed in expensive outfits, pretending this was a celebration of family. She leaned closer, her lipstick perfect, her eyes cold. "We wish you were never born." For a moment, I wasn't even sure I'd heard correctly. My chest tightened, but my face didn't change. Years of practice had trained me better than any school ever could. In our family, emotions were weaknesses you paid for. Tears were invitations. Anger was proof you cared. I looked at her, then at the people around us. Everyone was busy admiring the cake, the decorations, the photo wall that said "Happy Anniversary" in sparkling letters. They didn't notice the sentence that had just split my life open. I swallowed slowly, tasting something bitter. And then I smiled. Not the kind of smile that forgives. Not the kind that breaks. The kind that seals something shut. "Okay," I said softly. My mother blinked, almost irritated by my calm. She expected pleading. She expected humiliation. She expected me to do what I'd always done, shrink. But I didn't. I straightened my shoulders, smoothed the invisible wrinkle on my simple dress, and turned away as if she'd told me she didn't like the appetizers. Behind me, the party continued. Music played. Glasses clinked. Laughter swelled. No one noticed me walking toward the exit. No one noticed that the daughter they had spent years mocking, ignoring, and quietly crushing was leaving without a scene. And that was exactly why everything was about to collapse. Outside, the air was cold. My breath turned white in front of me. I stood under the dim parking lot lights, listening to the muffled celebration behind the doors. My phone vibrated. A message. I glanced down. "Are you ready?" It was from Martin. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed with steady fingers, "Yes." "Do it." I slipped my phone back into my purse and looked up at the night sky. It was dark, endless, indifferent. For most of my life, I had believed the story my family told about me. That I was the mistake. That I was the burden. That I should be grateful they tolerated my existence. But stories can be rewritten. And tonight, mine was. I walked back inside. The moment I entered, my mother's friends smiled politely at me, the way people smile at furniture. My older sister, Celeste, stood near the champagne tower, glowing in a designer gown, her laugh sharp like glass. She spotted me and raised an eyebrow. "Well, look who came crawling back," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. A few chuckles followed. I didn't respond. I simply picked up a glass of water from a passing tray. Celeste smirked. "Don't worry, everyone. She won't ruin the mood. She never does anything interesting." More laughter. My father stood near the stage, talking to an older businessman with a proud expression. He didn't even glance in my direction. That was normal. Tonight wasn't about me. It never was. The anniversary celebration was for my parents, 30 years of marriage, 30 years of building an image of success. A perfect family. A perfect legacy. And I was the stain they kept hidden behind closed doors. Celeste leaned closer, her perfume overwhelming. "You know," she whispered, "Mom was being honest. You were never supposed to be here. But hey, at least you make us look better." I turned my head slowly, meeting her eyes. "Enjoy the party," I said. Her smile faltered, confused by my lack of reaction. Before she could reply, the lights dimmed slightly. The host tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, a toast to the happy couple." Applause erupted. My mother and father stepped onto the stage, hands clasped, smiling like actors who'd rehearsed this moment. My father raised his glass. "To family," he declared. "To love. To the blessings we've been given." The word blessings almost made me laugh. Celeste clapped dramatically, eyes shining with fake devotion. My mother took the microphone next. "We are so grateful," she said, voice warm and practiced. "This life, this family, is everything." Her gaze swept the room, ignoring me completely. And then, my phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a notification. Transfer completed. I stared at it, my fingers tightening around my glass. The first domino had fallen. Somewhere across town, a bank account linked to my father's pride and my sister's security had just been emptied, legally, cleanly, irrevocably. No one knew yet. They were still laughing, still clapping, still celebrating, and I was still standing there, quiet as a shadow. Celeste nudged me. "Aren't you going to toast? Or do you not have anything to be grateful for?" I looked at her. "Oh, I'm grateful," I said softly. She narrowed her eyes. For what? I smiled again. For the truth. Her expression hardened. What does that even mean? Before I could answer, a man in a black suit entered the hall. He wasn't a guest. His posture was too stiff, his face too focused. He scanned the room like he was searching for someone. Then he spotted my father. And he began walking toward the stage. My father paused mid-sentence, confused. The man reached the steps. He leaned up and whispered something into my father's ear. At first, my father's smile stayed in place. Then, it cracked. His eyes widened. His hand trembled so slightly the champagne rippled in the glass. My mother leaned closer, whispering, "What is it?" My father swallowed hard. The room was still applauding, unaware that the foundation beneath them had just shifted. Celeste frowned. "Dad?" My father stared out at the crowd, face paling. And then he spoke into the microphone, voice hoarse. "Excuse me, there seems to be an issue." The music stopped. The laughter faded. The silence arrived like a storm. And everyone turned to listen. The microphone squealed softly as my father's hand tightened around it. For a second, he looked like a man who had forgotten his lines in the middle of a play. My mother's smile was still frozen on her face, but her eyes, sharp, calculating, were scanning him for answers. Celeste leaned forward, irritation flickering across her features. "What issue?" Someone in the front row called out with an awkward laugh, trying to keep the mood light. My father cleared his throat. It's nothing. Just a small misunderstanding. Please continue enjoying." The man in the black suit whispered again, more urgently this time. My father's face went from pale to almost gray. My mother stepped closer, her voice low but venomous. "What is happening? You're embarrassing us." Embarrassing. That word always mattered more to her than any wound she'd ever inflicted. My father's lips parted, but no sound came. Then, abruptly, he handed the microphone back to the host as if it had burned him. "I need a moment," he muttered. The host forced a laugh. "Ah, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes surprises happen at anniversaries, right?" Nervous chuckles scattered through the hall. The music tried to restart, but it sounded wrong, thin and strained. Celeste turned toward me, eyes narrowing. "This is ridiculous." I lifted my glass, taking a slow sip of water. Celeste's gaze sharpened, as if something about my calm was suddenly suspicious. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. My father descended the steps quickly, the black-suited man following. My mother hurried behind them, her heels clicking like gunshots. They disappeared through a side door. The party resumed in fragments, people murmuring, pretending nothing was wrong, but watching like vultures. Celeste grabbed my wrist hard enough to sting. "Tell me," she hissed. "What is going on?" I looked down at her hand on me, then back up at her face. "You really don't know," I said quietly. Her grip tightened. "Know what?" Before I could respond, another figure entered the hall, an older woman in a navy blazer, carrying a leather briefcase. She moved with purpose, not like a guest. Behind her came two more men. The guests noticed this time. Conversation stopped again, heads turning. Celeste's mouth tightened. "Who are they?" The woman's eyes scanned the room, and then she saw me. For the briefest moment, recognition flickered. She walked toward my side of the hall. Celeste released my wrist as if suddenly unsure. The woman stopped in front of me. "Ms. Harper?" Celeste blinked. "Ms. Harper?" I nodded once. "Yes." The woman inclined her head respectfully. "I'm Elaine Porter, legal counsel for the Montclair Trust." A ripple of confusion moved through Celeste's face. "The Montclair Trust," she repeated. "That's not." Elaine opened her briefcase and withdrew a folder. "I was instructed to deliver these documents tonight." Celeste let out a sharp laugh. "Deliver documents? At my parents' anniversary party?" Elaine's eyes remained calm. "Yes. Given the circumstances, timing is critical." Celeste stepped between us slightly. "What circumstances?" Elaine didn't look at her. She looked only at me. "The account closures have been executed. The asset transfer is complete." Celeste's laughter died instantly. "What?" she whispered. I turned my head slightly toward her. "You should probably sit down." Celeste's face flushed. No, what is she talking about?" Elaine's voice was clear, professional. "Ms. Harper, as the sole beneficiary of the Montclair Trust, you have full authority over the distribution of the family-held assets. This includes the joint accounts your parents maintained under the trust umbrella." Celeste stared like she'd been slapped. "The family assets?" she repeated. "That's my father's money. That's our inheritance." Elaine's expression remained neutral. "It was never solely his. The trust predates his marriage. It was established by your grandfather, Theodore Montclair." The name landed like thunder. My grandfather. The billionaire they always spoke about in vague terms, like a legend. A man who had died years ago, leaving behind whispers and unanswered questions. Celeste's voice trembled. Harper, you're not the beneficiary. I tilted my head. Aren't I? Celeste's eyes widened. No, that's impossible, Mom said. She said a lot of things, I replied softly. At that moment, the side door burst open. My mother stormed back into the hall, her composure shattered. My father followed, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. My mother's eyes locked onto Elaine first. Then onto me. Her face twisted. What is she doing here? Elaine nodded politely. Mrs. Caldwell. My mother flinched at the name, as if it didn't fit her perfect image. Celeste spun toward them. Mom, Dad, what is happening? Who is she? Why is she saying Harper controls the trust? My father's mouth opened, then closed. My mother's voice was sharp, desperate. This is not the time for. Elaine interrupted calmly. Actually, it is precisely the time. She held out the folder. These are the final documents confirming Ms. Harper Montclair's position as sole trustee and beneficiary. The room was no longer pretending to celebrate. Guests were openly watching now, drawn by the tension like a live spectacle. Celeste's face went white. Montclair? I took a slow breath. Yes, I said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Montclair, not Caldwell, not your perfect family name. My mother's lips trembled. Stop. I smiled faintly. Stop what? Existing? The room froze. My father's voice cracked. Harper, please. Not here. Not here? I repeated. You mean not in front of witnesses? My mother's eyes flashed with panic. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice steady. I understand why you always treated me like a mistake. Because I was proof. Celeste's voice rose. Proof of what? Elaine spoke again, clinical. Proof that Mr. Caldwell married into wealth he never controlled. A gasp rippled through the guests. My father's face contorted. Elaine, that's enough. Elaine's gaze was cold. You were instructed to remain silent. My mother stepped forward, voice lowering into something almost pleading. Harper, we raised you. I laughed softly. You tolerated me. You used me. Celeste shook her head violently. No, she's lying. Mom, tell me she's lying. My mother's mouth opened, but no lie came fast enough. I turned toward Celeste. You always believed you were the golden child, I said quietly. The successful one. The one who deserved everything. Celeste's eyes filled with frantic rage. I do deserve it. I worked. You worked? I interrupted gently. With money that was never yours? With connections bought by a trust you didn't even know existed? Celeste's breath hitched. My father stepped forward, voice desperate. Harper, whatever you want, we can talk privately. Privately. So they could twist, manipulate. Silence. I shook my head. No more private. Elaine opened the folder and withdrew one final page. There is also an additional clause. My mother's eyes widened. No. Elaine continued. Given the misuse of trust-linked funds over the last decade, the trust board has initiated an audit. If fraud is confirmed, Celeste screamed, fraud? Elaine's voice remained calm. Then legal action will follow. Including asset seizure. The hall erupted into murmurs. My father looked like he might collapse. My mother's face twisted into something ugly. You did this, she hissed at me. You ruined us. I stepped closer, my smile gone now, replaced by something colder. No, I said softly. You ruined yourselves. I just stopped pretending. Celeste's voice broke. Why? Why would you do this? I looked at her for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. Because tonight you told me you wished I was never born. My mother's breath caught. And I realized, I continued, that the only reason you ever kept me around was because you were afraid of what would happen if I left. Silence. The party that had been built on appearances was collapsing in real time. My father whispered hoarsely, Harper, please. I turned away. Behind me, my mother's voice rose, frantic and sharp. Where do you think you're going? I paused at the edge of the crowd. Then I said the words that finished it. I'm disappearing. And this time, it wasn't a threat, it was freedom. The air in the hall felt heavier than the chandeliers above us. The laughter, the music, the carefully rehearsed celebration. Everything had died in an instant, leaving only the raw sound of whispers and shallow breathing. I took one step forward. Then another. The crowd parted instinctively, as if they feared touching the truth I carried. Behind me, my mother's voice cracked like a whip. You can't just walk away. I stopped, not turning around yet. Oh? I said softly. I did it my whole life. You just didn't notice, because you were always too busy erasing me. Celeste let out a shaky breath, her nails digging into her palms. Harper, she whispered, this is insane. You're humiliating us. Humiliating. That word again. The family religion. Appearances before morality. I turned slowly now, facing them one last time. The room was silent enough that even the faint hum of the air conditioning sounded loud. I looked directly at Celeste. You think this is humiliation? I asked quietly. Her lips trembled. What else would it be? I tilted my head. This is consequence. My father swallowed hard. Harper, please, he said hoarsely. Let's talk. We can fix this. Fix. That was always their favorite illusion. Fix meant bury. Fix meant silence. Fix meant pretending nothing ever happened. I smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm. No, I said. You can't fix what was built wrong from the start. My mother's eyes narrowed into fury. You're ungrateful, she spat. After everything we gave you. I laughed softly. What did you give me? I asked. Cold dinners? Quiet punishments? A life where my existence was an inconvenience? Her voice rose. We gave you a home. A house, I corrected gently. Not a home. Elaine Porter stepped forward again, calm in the middle of the storm. Ms. Harper, she said respectfully, the security team is ready. Would you like us to escort you out? Celeste flinched at the word escort. My father's face twisted. Security? Against your own family? Elaine's expression did not change. Against anyone who becomes a legal risk. That sentence landed like a guillotine. My mother's face went pale. She understood something then. This was real. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't one of their little family games where power always returned to them in the end. Celeste's voice cracked. So, what now? She whispered. You just take everything? I looked at her for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. No. Celeste blinked. No? I took a slow breath. I'm not taking everything, I said quietly. I'm taking back what was never yours to control. Celeste shook her head violently. But Dad, I repeated, cutting her off, was a guest in a house he pretended to own. My father's eyes flashed with humiliation. I built this family. No, I said sharply, my voice rising for the first time. You built a lie. The room shuddered with murmurs. My mother's lips parted, trembling. Harper, and for the first time, her voice wasn't sharp. It was afraid. You don't understand what you're doing. I stepped closer, stopping just a few feet away. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said softly. Then I leaned in, lowering my voice so only they could hear. I understand that you spent years making me small, because you were terrified of what I would become if I ever remembered who I was. My mother froze. Celeste's eyes filled with disbelief. My father's shoulders sagged, as if the truth had finally crushed him. Elaine opened her folder again. One more item, she said. My mother's head snapped up. No, Elaine continued, calm as ice. There is a personal letter. From Theodore Montclair. The name struck the room again like thunder. Guests leaned forward unconsciously. Elaine's voice became clear, carrying. This letter was sealed until Ms. Harper's 30th birthday, or until an event of familial hostility occurred. The conditions were met tonight. Celeste gasped. My mother's knees seemed to weaken. Elaine unfolded the letter, and then she began to read. My granddaughter, if you are hearing this, then the family I left you behind has failed. I feared they would. I feared they would turn love into leverage and blood into business. Harper, you were never meant to beg for belonging. You were meant to inherit freedom. Do not let them shame you into silence. Do not let them convince you that your kindness is weakness. And if the day comes when they reveal themselves, walk away, close the doors, and let truth do what money never could. Protect you. Theodore Montclair. The hall was completely silent. No murmurs now, no whispers, only shock. My mother's face contorted, something breaking in her expression. Celeste's lips trembled violently. My father looked down at the floor like a man standing at his own funeral. Elaine lowered the letter. That is all, she said. Celeste's voice cracked. Grandpa wrote that? I nodded once. He saw you, I said softly. Before I ever did. My mother whispered, broken. He never trusted us. I looked at her calmly. No, I said, he didn't. Celeste suddenly shook with anger. So what? You're just going to destroy us? Ruin Mom and Dad? Leave us with nothing? Her voice rose. We're still your family. Family. That word again. A word they only used when it benefited them. I stepped closer to her. And my voice dropped into something colder than anger. No, I said quietly. You were my relatives. Celeste's eyes widened. You were never my family. Celeste flinched like she'd been slapped. My father stumbled forward. Harper, please? His voice cracked. I was wrong. We were wrong. Just don't do this. For a moment, I saw him. Not the powerful man. Not the patriarch. Just a weak man who had spent decades feeding off what he never earned. I tilted my head. Do you know what's funny? I asked softly. My father swallowed. What? I didn't do this for revenge. My mother snapped. Then why? I looked at her. And the answer was simple. I did it so I could finally breathe. The room held its breath with me. I turned away again. Elaine stepped aside, creating space. Security waited near the exit, professional and silent. Celeste's voice trembled behind me. Harper, I paused, not turning fully. Yes? Celeste whispered, broken. What happens to us now? I stood still for a long moment. Then I spoke, calm and final. Now you live in the world you created. And I walked, step by step, through the doors. Out of the hall, out of their shadows. Outside, the night air was cold, sharp, honest. Elaine followed a few steps behind. A black car waited. The driver opened the door. I hesitated, just once, looking back at the glowing hall. The celebration still stood inside. The chandeliers still sparkled, but the illusion was dead. Elaine's voice was gentle. Ms. Harper, are you ready? I exhaled. Yes, I said quietly. And I got into the car. As the door closed, something inside me closed too. Not a door of anger. A door of longing. A door of begging. A door of hoping they would ever love me properly. The car began to move. Behind me, through the glass, I saw figures rushing. My mother's silhouette. Celeste's frantic shape. My father, slower, broken. Too late. The city lights blurred ahead. Elaine spoke softly. The audit will begin Monday. The accounts are secured. They cannot touch you. I nodded. I wasn't thinking about them anymore. For the first time in my life, I was thinking about me. My phone vibrated once. Then again. Then again. Missed calls. Messages. Please. Threats. Apologies. I didn't open them. I simply turned the phone face down. And smiled. Not because they were suffering. But because I was free. Somewhere behind me, a family was panicking. A mother was realizing cruelty has a price. A sister was learning privilege isn't permanent. A father was facing the truth that borrowed power always collapses. And ahead of me, a life waited. One that belonged to me. Completely.